In this video we're going to talk about whether or not autoblogging really works nowadays. Autoblogging promises that you can simply add a plugin to a WordPress site, edit a few settings, press go, and hey presto, you've got a profitable site. But does it really work? And nowadays most of the time the answer is quite simply no. It has worked in the past, but if you're simply buying a $97 script, and that's quite often what they are, and expecting to find the internet equivalent of just the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, you're likely to be disappointed. Let's take a quick look at what autoblogging does. Essentially, you decide on a series of keywords, decide on the sources you're going to use for your content, so you might choose RSS feeds, articles, Yahoo Answers, Flickr, YouTube videos and so on. You then decide how you're going to monetize the site, AdSense if you don't care for the longevity of your account because they don't really like it at all and you're very likely to get banned, ClickBank, cost per action, CPA offers and so on. And you might delve more into the features of the software and make a few tweaks that the plugin provider claims will mean that Google won't spot any footprint, so they won't penalise you. We'll talk about that in a minute or two. There are some variations on that theme. You might join a private blog network instead of using a plugin, but it's the gist of it. And automated content essentially means untouched by human hand, and that's actually the biggest problem with it. The software doesn't know things instinctively because it's not human. It's a computer program, unless it's very expensive or human moderated at some point, it's also very fallible. Let's look at an example to illustrate the point. I'm going to assume your main autoblog niche is to do with fish and aquariums, and one of the subtopics is seahorses, and that's the first hurdle actually, seahorses. I originally typed it in as two separate words, it's actually just one. But anyway, it could be them or any other type of fish, and if one of your autoblog feeds is from Amazon, you'll have to drill down in their subcategories, otherwise you'll get children's toys, necklaces, ornaments and all sorts of other things that are only loosely related to seahorses or the real fish type. So if you limited your results to books, your autoblog would run out of content after 32 posts, which isn't very automatic. It's one a day for a month, just over. Google, which you could argue is more sophisticated and definitely cost a lot more to develop than your $97 script, gets equally confused. First page results gave me a Wikipedia page about seahorses, that's fine, National Geographic page, and a magazine about seahorses. All the kind of results you'd expect. That's the first three. Fourth result was a piece of software that deals with encryption and decryption but is called Seahorse. Then there was a site about instruments used in bioscience, then a YouTube video, which Google for some reason, normally it's quite good at YouTube descriptions, but this one said unavailable, but clicking through it actually did exist, and that was a video about seahorses. Then there was a news story, and then a seafood restaurant called Seahorses. That was just in the first page of the results. By the third page it had strayed as far as a resort and a collection of clothing for bridesmaids. Page 5 gave a result for whatever IXBRL tagging is. Page 6 included a result about getting divorced. Page 8 there was a water taxi called Seahorses. Page 9 a soccer team and also a firm of underwriters, and page 10 naval architects. So in the first 100 results, Google strayed a long way from what you'd expect if you just wanted to talk about the fishy type of seahorses. And in a nutshell, that's a fantastic example of why autoblogging software just doesn't work. You or I could go through those results and decide whether or not to include them just by looking at the titles. That's all I did. Software can't do that because it doesn't know any better. And what that means is your dream autoblog is completely unfocused after a very short space of time. Remember, with Amazon we had 32 results. With Google, probably half the first 100 results weren't to do with the aquatic seahorse. It just isn't something that software's good at. And with a Google search, you might add a word or two to your search to draw it down. But unless your autoblogging software's got a lot of control and you've got a lot of time and patience to weed out the wrong results, at best you'll end up with a bunch of completely unrelated stuff. And then there's that footprint. I told you to come back to that you'll be leaving. $97 software needs to sell lots of copies to be able to make its developers a decent sum. It just stands to reason they're not going to sell you something that cost them hours and hours to develop, probably thousands of dollars for 100, and make a loss on it. and it often allows you to use it on more than one site, sometimes for an extra fee, sometimes not, depending on the license. But either way, that means there are thousands of other sites, all with the same kind of mix, all with the same powered by messages, because for instance Yahoo Answers requires you to include a powered by Yahoo Answers thing, otherwise you're breaking their terms and conditions. And lots of other things that Google's algorithm doesn't need to break a sweat to identify and push onto page 1,000,001 on the search results, so you never get found. And that explains why you can have hundreds, thousands, even tens of thousands of pages on your autoblog, but the only traffic you get is if you actually log in to check your site, and you probably won't do that either, so the site gets zero traffic. It's just far better to spend a bit of time each day on building a real site rather than one that's created by an autoblogging program. It can be as little as an hour a day, as long as you're consistent, and that's a blue link there, so you can click the link below this video. Or more than an hour if you'd like to grow faster. It's not sexy, it's definitely not going to give you server melting traffic, and it needs work on your part. And that last sentence is good because it puts off the vast majority of your potential competitors. I know that because the products I've launched that promise even reasonably fast results sell an order of magnitude better than the ones that promise you'll have to do some work. So you've automatically got less competition when you go down this route. And if you've got this far in the video, congratulations. The next step is take some action, and I suggest that as an absolute minimum that action is your own site with your own content, which might sound scary, but it doesn't need to be. And if you'd like a roadmap for doing that, check out my Internet Marketing in an Hour a Day that's linked from the end of, well, below this video, and follow the simple ideas in that, actually putting them into practice. And you'll be well on your way to beating countless autoblogs and starting to actually earn some cash from your internet marketing, which is the whole idea of this exercise, really. And if you'd like to know more about internet marketing in an hour a day, click the link below this video, or the one that's been on screen all the time. Thanks for watching, and I wish you every success in your internet business.